So in this video, we're going to learn a little bit about embroidery hoops and embroidery frames and all that kind of thing. So your normal embroidery hoops are something like this. So this is a normal wooden embroidery hoop. This is the Embroidery brand. So these come in lots of different sizes. This is a 4-inch. And that's a 10-inch, so you can see the massive difference in size. So that can depend on the size of the project you're working on, or how big you want to frame the piece, things like that. So I have another video on how to actually stretch the fabric in the hoop, so you can have a look at that to figure it out. But basically, embroidery hoops, they'll have an inner hoop and an outer hoop, and you stretch the fabric kind of in between the two. But again, you can watch the other video for that. I won't go through it all here as well. These hoops, they have a screw on the top that you can tighten up to tighten that outer hoop and make sure that your fabric stays nice and tight. So they're very good for that. We also have something called Flexi Hoops. So again, they have an inner ring and an outer ring. So the inner ring is the white, the outer ring is the pink. And they have a little thingy at the top here, which is really nice for hanging your embroidery hoop. So I think these Flexi hoops are really nice for displaying work. But personally, I think the wooden hoops are slightly better for actually using for stitching in. But you can stitch in these as well, no problem. So that one unscrews, and basically the outer hoop kind of rolls out, and you can see it's called a flexi hoop because this piece is quite flexible, and the inner hoop it's quite rigid, so that really keeps the shape. So they're both plastic, it's just a kind of more flexible plastic and a more rigid plastic. And you can see on the inner hoop, it's kind of a ridge that the outer hoop sits into. So again, you stretch your fabric over the inner hoop and you put the outer hoop on top, and it holds it in place, and you can screw the top back in. Okay, so therefore, obviously stitching just in your hands, you'd always use one hand to hold the hoop and the other hand to be stitching. But if you want to free up your hands, let me just move these out of the way. You have these embroidery frames. Okay, let me just zoom out a bit to try and show you this. So this is the same idea as those wooden hoops. You can see it looks pretty much the same from this angle. So you have your outer hoop with the screw, but you also have this attached to it, this kind of stalk attached to it, which goes into this thing. So this is a seat frame, and basically this part here, you sit on that, and then you have your hands free to stitch through the hoop. Okay, you can also get instead of seat frames, table frames. So table frames, or they're sometimes called barrel clamps because they look a little bit like a barrel. Instead of, so this part you sit on, this one you attach to a table, you put it around the table there, and you can screw that in to tighten it on whatever size table you're working on, and that just sits on the table, and your stalk goes in there. So again, you can free up your hands, you don't have to be holding the frame because that's attached to the table. So you can get hoops for these frames in, this is the 6-inch size. You can get 8-inch and you can get 10-inch. So they come with this stalk attached, and you can use them in those frames. The other thing that you can put in those frames is this versatile clamp. Okay, so again, it sticks in there in the top, and this piece on the top is a kind of clamp. I can't get that in the frame properly, so I'm going to take it out of there. So this clamp here, you can put your normal embroidery hoop into it. So I'm just going to unscrew this a bit. Open up that clamp. There we go. And then you can just pop your normal embroidery hoop in there. So I just want to make sure that's nice and tight to keep that frame in there. Tighten up those screws. And there you have your embroidery hoop in that clamp that you can put into your seat frame or your table clamp. And again, you have your hands free. All right, so again, I sell all of these on my website. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. This is something, it's a little bit more expensive, so I would only invest in it if you're really getting into stitching. I don't think you need it just to start out. But the versatile clamp is really handy, because if you already have a load of these hoops, you can just use them with it. The other hoops are very handy as well, to go with the frame. And they kind of, I think they sit a little bit better than this, but it's totally up to you. But yeah, if you have any questions about them, just let me know. But that's the basics of embroidery hoops and embroidery frames and how to use them. So just very quickly change the angle to show you how the table clamp works, so you can see that's attached to the table there, and I can change the height of where I want my hoop to sit by just tightening this screw here, or I can move it down a bit, and then I have both hands free to work on my piece. You can unscrew this a little bit here to change the angle that you're stitching at as well, and just tighten that when you have it at the right angle. So that's how the table clamp looks. So these are really good if you find that your back is getting a bit sore or your shoulders are getting a bit sore from the way you're sitting when you're stitching. It really allows you to change the angle that you're sitting at so that you're more comfortable. So these frames are all about making it more comfortable for you. Now the seat frame, as I was saying, you sit on this bit. So you can either put it under one side, and again you can change the height and the angle of that, or if you prefer you can put it between your legs and sit like that. But again, it's all about making it as comfortable as possible for you, to get it in the right position for you. So that's why they are very good to use. So that's pretty much it. That's all we have on those embroidery hoops and frames. But as I said, if you have any more questions, just let me know. And again, they are all available on my website as well.